Howdy folks, welcome to the Creative Hustlers Podcast, episode 5.
This week, our host will be our guest. We're turning the tables. Dr. David Wiatrolik is an award-winning guitarist, composer, producer, and educator with a deep appreciation for American music. Known for risk-taking improvisation, his versatility spans genres as a performer, recording artist, and teacher. A former member of St. Louis indie rock band Kentucky Knife Fight, whose albums earned Album of the Year and Best Rock Band from the St. Louis Riverfront Times, Wiatrolik later earned his doctorate in studio jazz guitar from the University of Southern California in 2017. He has since returned to Fort Collins, Colorado, where he performs with local artists, leads his own groups, the Gin Mills and Pixel Paradise, and serves as program director for the Music and Recording Arts Technology program at Front Range Community College. He holds a summer residency at the Ace Cafe in downtown Fort Collins on Saturdays. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. This is exciting for me because we get to learn a little bit about kind of who you are as an artist. Everybody around here knows you as program director, and
Sure.
Get to hear a little bit more about kind of where you come from.
Yeah.
I want to go way back. Like, what was the first music that really interested you? Like, what were you listening to early on?
My earliest memory of listening to music was oldies, like pop music from like the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
On the oldies stations. My dad used to like to listen to oldies radio. A lot of radio. Yeah, we didn't have like a big system or records, or my parents didn't have music collections, but we did listen to the radio a lot. And
Okay.
then, I started building my music collection a little bit later in life, in high school and stuff. But yeah, oldies, pop, which kind of makes sense.
We talk about like the good old days of being in a rock band as a kid and getting together with your friends, like this kind of, can you take us through this kind of mythological time that once existed that I don't know if it exists anymore. I don't know if the students are doing the same thing, but we both have really fond memories of this, and you do a pretty good job of painting that picture. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so, this is going back before the internet and phones and, all that kind of technology stuff. My first band I was in freshman year in high school. Besides playing in band at school, one of my friends was starting a punk rock ska band, and at that time I was trumpet player. I didn't play guitar. I was playing trumpet in the school band.
Player.
That was my instrument.
That was your first instrument?
Yeah. So
cool.
So yeah, it was like the mid '90s, and like skateboarding and punk rock music and ska music was kind of making its big thing on the radio, with bands like the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and all that good stuff. We started the ska punk band, and it was based around like a bunch of friends who we just would skateboard, honestly. So we'd go to band practice at my friend Miles's house, and his mom was really cool, and he had like the band set up in the basement. We could play as loud as we wanted whenever, and he had ramps in his driveway, and we would just like skate for an hour or two, and then we go and we play, and then we like come back out and skate, and then we play like high school parties where there would be skating and weird groups of girls and guys like on separate sides of the yard. But it was a magical time. We just got together and messed around and tried to figure it out. It was very chaotic and unorganized, but the band was like the same 6 or 7 members, and that was the first band. And then from there it was just playing in a lot of other bands, and it was kind of the same thing. You just get together with the same folks, and it's built around this really tight community and friend group, and then on the outside of that is our friends. We played shows and meet other people that were kind of into the same stuff and played with other bands, and it was just very much like community centered. No internet, no photographs, no video. Like, I have no footage of any of that stuff. Like, but kids today, like, their first performance is probably like live streamed and has like 4 cameras on it, and You know, it's just
Yeah.
like none of that stuff was ever documented, so it's just lost to time. But yeah, it was another time, and
Were you singing back then?
I was not. I just played trumpet, and then I started singing a little bit later in some of the later bands that
So
I played
did
in.
guitar come first or singing first?
The guitar came first, but the singing kind of came along with it.
Okay.
I started to kind of figure out how to play and sing pretty early on. Yeah, it was kind of a project. It's always been a project. It still is a project because I don't really feel like I'm an accomplished singer. You know, I don't have a pretty voice, I don't think. And I appreciate people who have pretty voices because I can tell, it's like, wow, that sounds good. I like that. That's pleasing to the ear. Where mine's just kind of like, what can I do to figure this out? If I could, you know, pull a Bob Dylan or just find out some way of like singing that like worked. That's kind of where I'm
Okay.
at with it. Maybe it's a lifelong journey, but I don't like my voice, but I sing anyway.
So when did guitar enter the picture? Were you playing guitar when you were playing trumpet in the band, or were?
Yeah, that's about when I
Okay.
started playing guitar. My mom had a classical guitar in the attic that we got out and restrung, and then I started playing around with the classical guitar, learning like tabs of, you know, Led Zeppelin songs and whatever stuff. And then I got an electric guitar a little bit later and started playing more like rock music and got an amplifier and a distortion pedal. And that was kind of when like I was going into like college in my junior year of high school. And the internet, we got the internet at home, and the
Okay.
tab stuff was pervasive, so I started getting my hands on tabs and learning tabs. And then later in college, to early 2000s, the Napster thing happened and the file sharing, and I was able to get my hands on a wealth of like recorded music, downloaded file sharing, so.
Well, that may be the answer to the question I was going to ask, which is, you have such a variety of music that you grab influences from, and I was wondering how you in the 90s it was hard to have it was hard to find music.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it that you managed to have all these variety of influences as a kid?
Yeah, I guess some of it was coming up through the music education system. You know, there was the high school jazz band, which I was a part of, and I really liked playing trumpet solos. And, carried that into college where I tried to study jazz as a music minor, and then eventually became a major. So I was into jazz and improv and taking solos and stuff. I didn't know a whole lot of theory, but also there was the punk rock and the ska music. And then later in high school, I kind of got into the jam band thing, like Fish, and then bluegrass, discovered kind of bluegrass and got a banjo, my senior year, and started plucking on some banjo and mandolin. So it was a lot of probably bluegrass and punk rock and jam bands and jazz, and then listening to like 50s, 60s pop music and Beatles as a kid. Like all that stuff kind of made me pretty just versatile, and like I just like, oh, that sounds fun, like I want to try to play that, or like how do they get that sound, or what instrument is that, like. And then from there, I've kind of meandered into other things too, but yeah, from the early onset it was pretty diverse, from the radio play and then the jazz to punk rock realm, and then jam bands. So
Because even
Yeah.
Kentucky Knife Fight, like you think you know what it is, and then you don't. Like it was like outlaw, and then it's hard
Yeah.
rock, and then it's blues,
It's kind of
and punk, and then there's like atmospheric, cinematic kind of stuff. Like you guys were trying all sorts of different styles.
Yeah, it was an interesting group. That was probably the group that really had the most traction out of all the bands I've ever been in. And, we were in St. Louis. It was a few of the guys were art majors. So there was kind of like, these visual art members that had this like aesthetic and this vibe that, they wanted to go for. I joined up with them pretty early on because my roommate was the drummer and they were practicing in our apartment. And I was like, man, I want to play with you guys. Like, you guys sound good, And then they got me in as a banjo player on one song.
Okay.
And then they added me as a second guitar player. But yeah, we played around St. Louis. And that was the college years near Edwardsville and near St. Louis at SIUE. And yeah, we went at it for like 7 or 8 years. We eventually moved to St. Louis. We were like an Edwardsville college band, and then we moved to St. Louis and, playing bigger and bigger shows, getting more of a following, and went on tours, bought a van and did the whole thing. We recorded like 3 albums. And yeah, that band was kind of tough to nail down, and that ended up being their downfall. Like after I left the group and moved to Fort Collins in 2011, they continued touring for like the next 5 years, like nonstop. And they were always struggling to like nail down like what they were, because they had producers and people from labels that were just like, okay, you guys have to like focus in on something. It's hard to market when you're like cinematic film score and kind of like punk and kind of blues and kind of like, country and just like all this cool stuff. But yeah, that was that's the thing. You have to kind of like settle in on something. If you're too versatile, it's confusing, I think, to the audience and maybe from a marketing standpoint.
I get that. I also don't like it though, because what you guys were doing was so cool, like all those different styles combined.
That's the intersection of like business and music, Do you want to like do this for 5 years and then get a day job and be a banker or go into some other field, or do you want to like, make enough money so that you can continue playing music and have a comfortable lifestyle, and you have to make sacrifices to market that and develop an income stream, I think. And if it doesn't happen naturally, you kind of have to make some choices, I think, and aesthetically, narrow yourself in and make it a little bit more easy to market.
Did you always want to go to music school? What was that decision like for you?
Well, yeah, college, I was definitely really interested and passionate about music in high school, but the idea of going to music school wasn't, my parents weren't behind it. They wanted me to go into something that, could make money. So I settled on engineering. So I was a civil engineering major. My first few years of college, I was a music minor. I went to college and I was like, doing the engineering classes, but I was like, I'm joining the jazz band, So I was like playing in jazz combo and in the jazz band as like a music minor, which was tricky because, you went to music school, how like sort of competitive and like weird hierarchical things are going on within music programs. And I was like the music minor who didn't know any theory, and it was just like, yeah, I'm just playing by ear, man. I don't care. Like, I don't care about notes. And like, that kind of didn't work so well, and with a bunch of like, music majors and grad students and stuff like that. So I eventually switched schools. I was at Edwardsville Eastern Illinois University in Charleston, Illinois, and then I went to Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville, a bunch of small state schools in Illinois. But the Edwardsville school, Southern, had a jazz guitar program, like a big jazz guitar program. And they had a really good faculty, good jazz faculty. So when I got down there, I was like, I started joining the jazz combo, went to auditions and started hanging out with all the musicians. And then I formed a band with all the musicians in the jazz school, or like a few of the musicians from the jazz school. And then the guitar professor, Rick Hayden, he came in. We were having a rehearsal in like one of the practice rooms, and he's like, man, what are you doing? Like, you're here all the time. Why aren't you a music major? You should be a guitar major. Like, you spend all your time, you're an engineering major, but you're always in this building. So it kind of like, scared me into adding and becoming a double major. And so yeah, I became a double major in guitar performance.
When you kept the engineering thing even when you switched schools.
Yeah, and I finished the degree. It took me a while, but I have a bachelor's in science and civil engineering. It's on the wall in my office. Not that I really used it ever, but I do use it. I use it for home improvement projects.
Which you do a lot of.
Which I do a lot of, but that's another podcast.
And you're good at. I don't think you learned that through the college degree, though.
No, that was YouTube mostly. And just like, problem solving.
How to demo your kitchen and install countertops. And,
But yeah, so the double major thing, I was in school for a while, finished the bachelor's, and then I kind of just played with the rock bands and went on tour for a couple of years. And then I came back and got a grad assistantship and did a master's in music. So I got the TA position and went to school for free and spent 2 more years at the same school. And that's when I kind of like left the Kentucky Knife Fight band and started my own project called the Two Swinging Picks. And that was kind of like this old time. I was starting to get into this like old time jazz guitar stuff, like Carl Kress and Dick McDonald and these like turn of the century, Eddie Lang, like these like turn of the century, early teens, like 1912, 1915, 1920s, like virtuoso jazz players that there's only like a couple recordings of. So I just loved that thing, and I was really inspired by this local artist, Pokey Lafarge, who was like making waves in St. Louis. St. Louis music scene was pretty cool. It's like this, if you've never been, it's this river city. It's got this huge, deep, old history, and there's a lot of cool like punk rock and blues and garage rock and just this like earthy, like gritty, kind of music scene and all these cool clubs. So that was kind of a cool place to be inspired by and cut my teeth in, and the Kentucky Knife Fight thing and the bluesy rock, and then the old-timey jazz thing was kind of, the progression after that. And that was the precursor for the Gin Mills, which is one of my bands that I still continue with. It's got this old-time, Django Reinhardt kind of jazz manouche, hot jazz, a little bit of Western swing in there, a little bit of country stuff, Bob Wills and that stuff. Kind of like keeping that going a little bit.
We played some of that at a faculty concert recently.
Yeah.
That was really fun. That's fun stuff.
It's fun music. It's like the swing music where like you want to dance, because originally like, jazz music was like nightclubs and stuff and people dancing and big band stuff, and it was dance music, and it kind of genre-wise, it kind of left that stuff behind and became more academic and more cerebral and just virtuosic, and it's not a lot of jazz you can't really dance to. Some, you can, but I always like that component of it, it's like happy, upbeat, bouncy music that, is, interesting to someone who's not, holding a master's degree in jazz performance to listen to and appreciate.
It was nice to have like, there's like the jam session standards that everybody plays. And when you came in with some of that stuff, so you'd written some stuff in that style, it was like really refreshing and fun, and
oh, cool.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's always kind of, I don't know, I always like worry about that or apprehensive about that, because you're bringing in like an original song and like play my song, and it's like probably easier for them to like just play a standard.
Okay, so bird's eye view now, you have a doctorate degree. What does that look like? Like undergraduate, master's, doctorate?
Yeah, no, that journey it's pretty interesting, because there's a lot of redundancy with it, to be honest.
Okay.
Like you take music theory 1, 2, 3, and 4 as getting a bachelor's in music, and you do your performance classes, your recitals you put on, you do lessons, you do history classes, some electives, and then you get your bachelor's. When you go back to your master's degree, guess what? You take theory, you take history, you take ensembles, you take private lessons, you take some electives. And then when you go back for your doctorate, and depending on where you go and what degree, because you could do like a PhD in musicology or a PhD in like education, or there's other kind of like realms, but as far as like performance, it's a doctorate of musical arts, a DMA, and it's pretty much very similar. You have recitals you're putting on, you do theory and history again. I went to USC one of the main reasons I went there is their curriculum was pretty progressive in the way that most doctorate programs, you have to focus like on a research topic, like one research topic, and you write a 200-page paper about whatever, whoever, some sort of research topic. And at USC, with your doctorate DMA degree, you had basically three electives you could choose. So you had like an academic elective, and I chose music education, So I got to like take high-level research courses with other PhD students who were, focusing on, graduate level music education research and stuff. So I got super into that with those classes. I got to do like music technology, so I took all the music technology courses that they offer, and was a TA in the music technology thing. So I got the, I got the grade. I got the grade. So in the doctorate degree, basically it's a repetition of a lot of your previous coursework. It may be more in depth and more like academic and rigorous, but yeah, USC was unique because you could choose these 3 elective fields: so music education, music technology, and film scoring.
Okay.
So my dissertation was basically like presenting 3 components. There was like this research component where I wrote some papers. There was a film score I did for a short film. I recorded a record, and I did like 3 recitals during that time in 3 years. It was a lot. It was intense. Yeah, it was crazy. I was just like this monk, just like in a tiny 10 by 12 foot room, just practicing and studying for like 14, 15 hours a day and just never leaving, like for 3 years nonstop.
I thought you chose, like, I'm doing the recital route as my project, I'm doing the paper, it seems like you did all of the above.
Yeah, because like, I wrote 30-page papers, 3 of them, rather than one 300-page paper.
Okay.
And I didn't spend like 4 years researching one topic. I just, I did it in like 2 semesters, all my research stuff. So it was kind of a nice taste, sprinkling, a buffet of all those things, which I think suits me well, because I like to kind of dabble in things and research. Music education stuff is really interesting, like education theory and sort of, learning and teaching and learning is really interesting and relevant, but also technology and also performance and also like, scoring and producing music for film and TV and that whole world. So I was able to kind of like study very broadly, which was cool, I thought.
Well, it works well for your job now.
Yeah.
Because we have all kinds of students wanting to do all kinds of different things, and you're the perfect person to be able to kind of direct their interests, which is interesting. Do you recommend that your students get advanced degrees? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a tricky thing. It depends on your goal. Like if you really want to teach in higher education, and that type of learning works for you, and you can afford it, because I guess the biggest thing in higher education is it's just become really expensive. Mm-hmm. So are you willing to take on debt to achieve that goal? Is it worth it? I think you should look at the math, look at the numbers, and consider that, because there are a lot of ways to study music and a lot of ways to get skills. A lot of information out there on the internet, and it's easier and easier to get information and access to it. And there's plenty of like, really educated people and great teachers around, like especially Fort Collins, that you can study with without, taking on a $60,000 a year or more, student debt kind of situation. So yeah, it depends on your goals. If you want to teach in higher education, you kind of have to have those certificates, those degrees, that paper.
Right.
Whereas if you just want to get really good at your instrument, you could probably just study with good players and do a little bit of this and that, some self-guided education, and that might be enough for you. So yeah, I think what we do here is kind of a unique thing, because we can bridge that gap. Like if you're interested and you just want to play around and see if it's your thing, like, yeah, community college is a great place to come and experiment. We don't do auditions. We're not selective about people getting in here. And if it works out, cool, and you can excel and go through the program, then you can move on and go to a bachelor's at another school. You can continue from there and get your master's and whatever advanced degrees you might need or want. But it's a good place to start with low stakes, and it's affordable. But yeah, with the affordability thing, I would caution people with just thinking that go through the machine of higher education for music and think that you're gonna, be happy about it and look back and, reflect and be like, did that meet my goals, or was there another way? Especially if you're taking on debt. If money's not an option, heck yeah, go to college for sure. you know, yeah, I mean, that's the only thing. So it's a great experience. College was awesome. I stayed in it for way too long. But it also didn't cost as much then as it does now.
Yeah, it's too
Stakes
bad.
are high.
It took kind of some of the fun out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but this program that you've designed here, I mean, I think students can come for 2 years and have a lot of tools to just immediately get work. It's pretty exciting. So yeah, it seems like with this program you've designed here, it's pretty cool. Students can come for 2 years at community college prices and have a lot of skills that you would need to work as a musician.
Yeah, no, that's the idea, right? You know, you can take private lessons from really good teachers, performers themselves, professionals. You can be in a combo and learn about, you know, composing and writing music and playing with a group. You can learn your theory, you can learn your history, you can learn your music technology, which is, you know, really necessary these days to kind of start your music career and, you know, get your music out there, record it, document it, find an audience, market yourself. You know, yeah, we just kind of give you the tools, and you can stay here as long as you want. You know, like, no one's going to kick you out. So if you want to come back and take private lessons and be in the ensemble semester after semester after semester and take classes at your own pace, like, yeah, it's totally chill in that nature.
But if you come and do like music audio production and live sound, I mean, you could work in a studio, you can run sound at a gig, you know, at a club.
Right.
Those are some good money making tools for someone who's trying to pursue like music or life as a creative.
Yeah, because it helps you have kind of spawn out your income streams where, like, yes, I want to be an artist and like play in my band and write my music and all that kind of stuff, but I support that via adjacent music jobs. Like, I run sound here, I do events there, I do some weddings over here, I teach some private lessons, and I have my little YouTube channel or whatever your thing is. Like, you can sustain that, you know, one passion with all of these other skills that you've built, hopefully while you're here, and allows people to sustain that lifestyle.
I'd like to talk about Pixel Paradise a little bit.
Okay.
So did you before forming Pixel Paradise, after learning from Kentucky Knife Fight, did you have like a more focused idea for Pixel Paradise on sort of what style you were going to go for? I mean, now you have a doctorate in jazz. I mean, you have so many things that you can do and so many styles that you can play and are interested in, and it's time to like form a new band. I'm kind of interested in your thought process behind it and what you were trying to build.
Yeah, so it's kind of, it was an itch that I'd been wanting to scratch for a while. Being in a rock band, an original rock band, like I was playing at that time in a cover band. I had the Gin Mills, which is kind of like this jazzy, you know, country-ish kind of stuff, and playing in sidemen work, you know, working with other artists. And I didn't really have like an original rock band that I was like the front man for. And I've always been inspired by a lot of the St. Louis indie bands that we were friends with and played with back then, like these indie dance rock bands, like the So Many Dynamos, Target Market, and there's a bunch of other bands that we used to be friends with and, you know, play with in the music scene. And I just really miss that kind of like, you know, high energy rock kind of stuff.
Okay.
So also, like, I like Fish. I like jam band music, specifically Fish mostly. But I like the fact that, you know, they're playing pop rock music essentially, and very diverse in genres and lots of improvisation. And their audience and fans support it. And we'll listen to them play 10-minute jam sections, you know, and jam out songs for way too long. And, you know, I like that too. So this was kind of like, you know, scratching the jam band itch, the rock band, the original music. And I'd just been sitting on a lot of music that I had written over the so many years, that was just like little song ideas. And, snowboard videos. I'd make these snowboard videos and compose like a quick little 30-second or 1 minute long song.
Okay.
And I would just release these things all the time back in the day. So I had like all these scraps and ideas of songs. So I kind of like harvested that whole thing and got a band together and tried to get to a place where it's like, I want a band of people that I, respect and like as a friend, and have this sort of like, this not so professional. We're professional, of course, like we conduct ourselves professionally, but the same 4 or 5 people, right? And we play and rehearse together, and we write songs together and collaborate. And I just miss that, because a lot of what I had done since college was very like professional-ish, like where it's like, okay, cool, here's the charts, show up for the gig, we're not going to rehearse, or we'll have one formal rehearsal.
Right.
Or as a wedding band, we're like, let's play 50 pop songs, in a row for 5 hours at a wedding, and like don't take any long solos because we got to get to Mustang Sally next and whatever else. So I don't know, I felt like I wanted to stretch out with this band and kind of reconvene with that sort of communal friend group of like-minded musical people who write music and work together and collaborate on the project. So that's what Pixel Paradise is an effort to get back to.
What interested me about the group, I sometimes play in Pixel Paradise, it seems like you have this established background in 90s music, which, I mean, everybody's interested in 90s. Like,
it's coming
90s
back.
is what everybody wants to be
It's
right
been
now.
long enough to where the 90s is cool again.
It is cool. And they're really envious of us of pursuing all these art projects and not being on our phones and that sort of thing. So you have all of that, and then advanced study of music, theory and harmony and all the jazz stuff. And then you also have all this experience in a wedding band. So like how to rock a crowd.
Song form, pop, genre,
what gets people
structures.
moving, what people want to hear. You've lived playing like all the most popular music of the day, and I'm assuming oldies and those sorts of things too.
Yeah.
So it was like, wow, here's a person who has all of that, the experience of kind of what it feels like to perform all of this music, and then kind of putting that together into this like soup of stuff in your own original style. So really a cool thing.
It's a soup. I like that.
So what do you think you've succeeded in with the band? Like, what do you think you've pulled off, and what are the things that you maybe think you haven't quite gotten to yet or done as well? Or like, how do you see, you've done one record or one EP and played a bunch of shows, but you're still in sort of beginning stages of getting this band off the ground.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest challenge or thing that we need to do as a band is like develop more of a following, outside of just your friends and your family who come and see your shows, like those people, of course, but then friends of those people and friends of those people, like to where like there's people at your show that you haven't met yet that know the words to the songs. Like that's when like Kentucky Knife Fight had that. Like we'd be like playing a show and it's just like, whoa, like all these people know our songs. Like I've never even met these people before. I don't know who they are. That's cool. So yeah, developing a following is probably the most difficult thing. It's tricky, especially in a town like Fort Collins. There's so many musicians and so many artists, just an interesting environment to kind of try to get your band going in. But that's probably the thing I'd like to, focus on and have more success with, nailing down like consistent, like a consistent lineup. We've kind of gone through a few different people. We started out with Bobby playing drums, and then the commitment was a little bit much for Bobby, and then my friend Drew now plays drums. We've had 3 different bass players. Now we've got Joe. So Joe and Drew are like, the Gin Mills old, band makeup. So now I've got those two folks, and you've played with us, and now we're kind of back to being a power trio. So yeah, it's just getting things consistent, developing a following, and keep writing and releasing music and booking shows. I mean, it's just a time thing. You just got to play shows. One of the things I've learned is that doing shared bill multi-band shows are kind of a necessary thing. Like, we used to always do it with the bands back in the day. Like, we'd always play with like 3 other bands and make no money, but like it was a good hang, and we met a bunch of people, and some people saw our band for the first time and became fans. So you have to do that a lot, I think, in original music, unless you've got some grandfathered in fan base or some like institution behind you that's given you great opportunities and putting you up on a big stage with a lot of people in front of it. You're going to have to start from the ground up, from the gutter, and work your way up like street level. And that's just playing shows with other bands, and kind of like adopting their followers and their fans, and making friends with that, and building your community, because you're building a community. So you got to get out there. So I want to be able to do that more. We've got some shows coming up that are with other bands. So making that a priority. And I'm also interested in maybe doing some busking. I saw this guy like Saturday out on the street in Old Town. Huh. And he was legit. Like, he had 500 series equipment. Like, so he had
Really?
API, preamps, and like SSL G stereo compressor. Like, he had like legit equipment.
I think people are kind of hungry for it though. Like, having musicians who really know how to play together, live, and you have like this bass line of songs, but anything can happen at any time. There's that wild kind of experimental improv aspect to it that's really exciting.
I love that.
How long have you been interested in that? Like, were you interested in that back playing trumpet, or when did that thing hit for you?
I think it started with the trumpet,
because you were saying you were playing by ear and not thinking about theory and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe that's kind of, it started there. And
it did, yeah, because like, we would take, like, I was in the jazz band, and we would take solos, and I'd be like, I'll take a solo and just blur, like do the thing.
Okay.
And not really know what key or scale or anything. And then like when I was in college, I hadn't studied theory yet either, and I would just like turn on the jazz radio station, and I would just like play along with like the songs for hours, and just like figure out like what key they're in and solo along with it. So I've always just like figured out like getting into music by just like improvisation and playing by ear. So that's always been kind of like a thing. And of course, been playing jazz for so long, it's essentially an essential part of jazz. So yeah, the improv thing, and just kind of like trying to go places and do things and interact with people has always been just the highest level of like interesting, musical collaboration, is just, like getting people to interact with you, and you kind of create this dialogue, and you go in this path, and it's this special moment that happens like right then and there. That's like the coolest thing about music, regardless of what the genre is. Like, if I can do that with people, like, I'm happy. Like, that's number one.
That's the stuff, man.
That's the juice. That's the it's the sauce right there.
Okay, we had some camera difficulties, so we're going to finish this one back up on the phone. David, tell us a little bit about where we can find you if we want to hear more of your music.
Yeah, so I have a website, davidwiatrolik.com, and the Pixel Paradise Band has a website, pixelparadiceband.com, and our Instagram is Pixel Paradise Band. I also have my Instagram, which is at David Wiatrolik. The Gin Mills, our Instagram is The Gin Mills. And if you're going on to Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff, the former name of the band was Dave and the Gin Mill Gypsies. So we've got 3 records out under that name. And Pixel Paradise has a EP. And a lot of the stuff on the internet. So, yeah.
Great, man. Good hanging with you.
Yeah, you too.
Till next time.
Heck
on
yeah.
the Creative Hustlers podcast.
Thanks for tuning in.
You'll be back hosting again next episode.
Yeah, I like being on that side of things better.
Cool. Thanks, man. Good times.
Yeah, thank you.